If I'm getting moody, dear, and always want a knit, if I seem to sicken for the flu, if I'm getting broody, dear, and gnawing at my bit, you will know it's all because of you. If my feathers droop and I should be about to moult, if I get distemper every day, if I twitch my ears at all and seem to want a bolt, you will know it's just because you stole my heart away. When I see the blossoms swaying gently in the breeze, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I hear the little birds a-twittering in the trees, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see the roses as they open one by one, children gathering posies, laughing gaily, full of fun. When I think of anything that's been out in the sun, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see the honeycomb, the bees upon the heath, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I think of any comb that hasn't any teeth, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see the prairie as the sun begins to sink, the glory of the heavens as the stars begin to blink, and when I think of anyone who's shut up in the clink, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see the briny and I hear the billows roar, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see the rubbish that is washed up on the shore, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see a thunderstorm and all is cold and drab, a lobster looking red and walking sideways like a crab, and when I see a cod's head winking at me from a slab, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see a tadpole or a frog about to hop, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see an organ with a monkey on the top, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see the grapes that cluster on the garden wall, the apples in the orchard as they all begin to fall, when I think of anything that's overripe at all, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I see the daffodil a-nodding by the brook, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When I hear the cuckoo when it oos but cannot cook, I think of you, dear, I think of you. When the hand of winter seems to have an icy touch, rabbits think of pork and start to shiver in their hutch. When the woods are nearly bare and one can see so much, I think of you, dear, I think of you. Working man does all the work but never gets the pay. He doesn't mean to stand it very long. His life is full of peril every minute of the day. The system is iniquitous and wrong. The man up in the lighthouse always leads a life of shocks. They give him no umbrella and he's always on the rocks. Now is it British? Is it British? Fellow workers, man to man, now is it British? The man who builds the liner never leaves this land of strife. No ukulele lady ever vamps him in his life. Every morning with his kipper he has got to see his wife. Now is it British? No, is it British? Is it British? Fellow workers, man to man, now is it British? The miner's life's in danger, though he doesn't mind a bit. He's got his shove and pickle and he's chock full up of grit. Yet although he loves the gallery, they send him down the pit. Now is it British? No, is it British? Is it British? Fellow workers, man to man, now is it British? They send the poor old steeplejack a mile above the road. Up among the pigeons he is working with his load. He goes up pigeon-chested and he comes down pigeon-toed. Now is it British? No. The profiteers are stoking up the fires of discontent. The working man is nearly stony broke. His life is not his own today, he's battered and he's bent. He hasn't got the money for a smoke. Now a window cleaner's cleaned the Crystal Palace now for years. Or why should he clean the palace when his favourite team's the Spurs? Now is it British? Is it British? Fellow workers, man to man, now is it British? The fisherman who braves the deep can never know his fate. He'd catch 1,000,000 fishes if his net could stand the weight. And they go and charge him 4p for a middle bit of skate. Now is it British? No. Is it British? Is it British? Fellow workers, man to man, now is it British? They send the working man to jail, his debts he cannot pay. He knows Berlin is capital of Germany today, but it's not his fault our capital is in the USA. Now is it British? No. Is it British? Is it British? Fellow workers, man to man, now is it British? The plumber gets no money, though he plums with might and main. He plums up in the chimney pots and plums down in the drain, and all they say is eat more fruit and he gets plums again. Now is it British?